clientele by navigating and crafting their personal stories that connect with their clients on a deeper, much more intimate level where it builds trust. So it's helping them to attract their ideal clientele. Social media is Dhylles Brand Coach everywhere: TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, website, dhylesbrandcoach.com.
Perfect. So let's start from the genesis of this. How did you get started and why?
I got started when I was in New York City. I'm from New York, and in 2010, I wanted to be a plus size model, and I would go to all these casting calls, and they would be like, "You're too short, you're too fat, your hair's not good, this, the next, and the other." And so I decided to just create my own fashion production company, and I had models that were all shapes, heights, and sizes. And what I found was a lot of them had a lot of self esteem issues. And I had been through that as well when it comes to accepting my body and my features. And so I was sharing my story with them. And the more I shared my story, what I went through, it empowered them to kind of like confront themselves, but also accept and embrace all of who they are. And so that's when I realized brand story or personal storytelling was a great way to add to your professional business and your brand, because it tells who you are and how you started, the obstacles you overcame, and why you're doing what you're doing.
I know sometimes for me, I realize that each job I've ever had, especially if it's in the realm of helping people, let's say, for
Mm-hmm.
example, when I used to do talks at the church or Bible readings or the coaching that I do, or even the podcast, it seems
Mm-hmm.
to always be born out of something that either I went through directly or someone that I know, right? I looked myself in the mirror and I said that if there was someone to help me along, maybe I would be in a better position. So that inspires me to help others. So when you
Exactly.
started that and you wanted to be a plus size model, you started working with these different women. Did you see parts of yourself in the women that you're helping?
Absolutely. I saw a lot of parts of myself going from like being sexually abused from 7 to 14 off and on, to having miscarriages, to almost dying in 2011. So I can relate to their stories, and I was able to help them and empower them in a way where, like, I don't look like what I've been through. But if I sit with you and I talk to you, and I offer you my vulnerability and share with you everything I've been through, you're going to look at me like, holy crap. And I could be like, okay, well, you can't make any excuses, because here I am. I went through all of those things, and I made a conscious decision to own and remember who I am. But on top of that, to not allow those things to define me. And I look at those challenges and struggles as challenges and struggles. I looked at them as gifts, because it empowered me to have notches on my belt, to have all this experience and wisdom and these lessons that I've learned that I share with the next person.
How were you able to do that? Because that seems to be something that's difficult for a lot of people to accept it, grow from it,
Mm-hmm.
learn from it in a way, and still
Mm-hmm.
lead a productive life. So, how difficult was that for you? And how did you do it?
It was difficult for me because I pretty much compartmentalize, and I've mastered dissociating. And when you dissociate, it's a form of survival or fight or fight. So you don't have to deal with it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I just had to sit with myself, and I had to tell myself the truth about the things I've been through, what I did to myself, and how I allowed other people to abuse me as well, because I was hurt and I was in pain. And so it was getting connected with the little girl in me, and ask her what she needed and what she wanted, and also forgiving me and giving myself grace, and learning how to give myself grace every single day, and giving myself compassion, because I would be a person that would be so hard on myself and pressure myself. I had to be perfect. And I also had to realize the only approval and validation and acceptance needed was my own, because I was such a people pleaser. So I just had to implement those specific things into my life in order for me to change and really, really pay attention to my cycles, patterns, and behaviors of who I thought I was, and to really, really sit with myself and ask myself, who are you truly? Who's the real you? And really, what are the things that you truly like and want? Not what people fed you about who you are. And so that's a process, and that's something that I still go through every single day in my life, because when you go through abuse and things like that, you do have a little bit of CPTSD or PTSD. You still have flashbacks, there's still triggers, and it's learning how to shift the mindset. So it's just mindset shifting all the time, every single day. From, because I used to be such a hypochondriac, I thought I was going to die from everything. And so it was like, no, you're healthy, you're fine, you're healthy, you're fine, you have a great life. So as soon as that imposter syndrome hits or the hypochondriaism hits, you immediately shift it. You pay attention to the mind. And that's what I started doing.
I know someone that is definitely like that. She'll list off all these things that she's going through, and it's resulting in people being pushed away because every day is a new issue that she has, right? And when I
Hmm.
look at the road to recovery, it's such a courageous one, but many times it's a lonely one.
It is.
You have to do it by yourself. Did that happen
Mhm.
to you where you're creating the path of recovery? You look to your left, you look to your right, and it's only you walking it.
Yeah. In 2020, during the pandemic, I went through a very, very powerful deep awakening, which is like dark night of the soul in the spiritual community or shadow work. And I was confronted with parts of myself that I didn't heal and parts of myself that I didn't like. And I was able to confront it with grace and compassion. And like I mentioned earlier to you earlier, I work with Egyptian goddess Isis, who is my spiritual mother. So she gave me the nurturance, the strength, and the ability to confront the self and to confront parts of my spirit that were like in full blown chaos. And I had to like really sit with the chaos, and I had to sit with myself, and I had to face myself. And I also had to pretty much reflect on regrets, mistakes, things that I did to people who I hurt, and had to go through that whole process. And so that took place for like 6 months, and I still go through it till this day.
In my teens, very young teens, I was bullied a little bit in school. And
Mm-hmm.
then as I grew up in my later teens, I went to the gym and I wanted to be physically strong because there was a time in my life where I was physically weak.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand at the time that that physical strength that I was growing, in turn, I was becoming emotionally weak because I was so sensitive to everything else, and I would
Mm-hmm.
always have to defend myself, right? Like you mentioned, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that the shadow work, that energy. It came a point in my life where something happened to me and I had to make a choice, either respond
Mm-hmm.
physically or respond emotionally. And for the first time, I took everything and I kept it inside and I was in check and I resolved it within myself,
Absolutely.
right? From that day
Mm-hmm.
forward, nothing bothered me on this
Mm-hmm.
earth.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas,
Because it's like the
go ahead.
saying goes. It's like the saying goes, nobody's gonna save you but you. You have to save yourself.
Yeah, does that, I don't want to say it's a transformation because I felt like the same person on the outside, but I was a different person on the inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that happens in the work that you described where there's a change that you maybe when you step in front of the mirror, you don't see, but you feel it and your
Mm-hmm.
perception of everything changes? Does that happen?
Absolutely, it does happen because the inner you, if you're a person who is experiencing anxiety, panic attacks, depression, all that stuff, when you go through your, first of all, you have to make a conscious decision to want to change. You got to be ready to want to change. With change comes uncomfortable emotions and feelings, and things are going to unravel and pop up. But after the fact, when you're so accustomed to being in fight or flight mode and anxiety, which I went through, when I was able to look at myself in the mirror and have this sense of peace, it was so weird to me. It was like, why am I so peaceful right now? Is something going to happen? Am I going to die? Da-da-da-da-da, all these thoughts because I was so used to just being unraveled. And so it's different when you look at yourself in the mirror because you don't recognize yourself. You don't recognize the chaos anymore. You don't recognize the self-inflicting ideas and emotions and wounds which you put yourself into. You don't recognize that person anymore. It's like a light in you. It's like a light in you. But I often tell people too, you have to connect your light and your dark sides because we have both sides, and you have to honor both of those sides. You can't have one without the other. That's just not how life works.
Describe those, the light and the dark side, for us who
So
don't
the
know.
light side is peaceful, happy, joyful, but also honoring the fact that yes, I'm going to set boundaries. Yes, I'm going to be angry. I'm going to honor my anger. I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to be in pain. I'm gonna cuss somebody out because they get on my last damn nerve, or somebody's trying to take advantage of me, and I'm going to defend myself. So it's both together at the same time. You can live in duality. It's just as long as you're utilizing your shadow side or your dark side for good and not for bad, not to be manipulative or vengeful or hurting another person, but doing it in a space where defending the self, standing up for self, and making sure that you set proper boundaries in your life, stuff like that.
I know a lot of people when they hear like the dark light, or sorry, they hear the light, they hear the dark, they think negative, right? Light,
Mm-hmm.
positive energy, something that we all should use. Then
Mm-hmm.
they think dark, they think like you mentioned, manipulative, mysterious, evil. But you're
Mm-hmm.
saying that to focus that in a positive way, but
Mm-hmm.
how can we get someone who's so maybe conditioned, for lack of a better word, to think that
Mm-hmm.
the dark is only for evil, right? How can
I would
we
I would
change that
ask them
mindset?
how's it work. I would ask them how's that working for you.
The age old
How's it
question, right?
working? Yeah, how's it working for you? How's it really, really affecting your life, your health, your mental state of being? How is that working for you? Because we all have to, at one point, break cycles, behaviors, and patterns. And sometimes it's something that's inherited from generations before us. So being able to be ready to take action and disrupting the narrative. And sometimes that's hard for people because you could be like, I've always been this way for the last 40 years. Okay, but are you seeing different results from being the same way? Because you know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting results. What are the results that you're experiencing? 9 times out of 10, none. Okay, so if you want change, you have to be the change you want to see.
Someone told that to me that they were too old to change, and I asked them their age, and they weren't even 40. So I'm like, that's midlife.
That means that you're addicted to the chaos and you don't want to remove yourself from the chaos, because once you remove yourself from it, your life is so much better. Not to say that you're not going to have challenges, but you're going to know how to handle the challenges in a more positive way where you're not allowing this thing or obstacle to take you down, so to speak, where you're not self sabotaging, where you're not holding yourself back. I had to master learning how to surrender to life and to just surrender to the flow and know that everything, which is my mantra every day, everything works out because it always does. There's nothing in life that never worked out the way it was. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way that you want it to. It's divine timing and divine order, but it will work out. If you look at your life 5 years ago, of the things you went through, you overcame those things.
I said something similar. She started bringing the chaos to people's front door, right? Like
Mm,
she was someone that on the surface, it looked like she enjoyed it because it kept her life busy. You remove the
mhm.
chaos, she had nothing else going for her except the chaos because it's like a car accident, right? You see people breaking their necks to see it. People
Yeah.
were tuning in to the show of her life because it became a theater, became cinema, right? The way she would conduct herself. And you mentioned something, whereas some people maybe may not understand the word. You said surrender to life. How can
Mhm.
we do that in a way that's going to benefit us for the future?
You surrender to life when you stop worrying and stressing about stuff that you cannot even control at all. If you lost your job, how can you control losing your job? There's nothing you can do about that. Or if you come upon some type of illness or something like that, you can't control that. So if you're going to consistently stress about it or worry about it, what do you think is going to happen? More stress, more worry, more chaos. So it's being able to say, okay, I'm in this position right now. This situation is happening in real time. Let me make a choice. Am I going to be present in the situation and still operate in gratitude? Or am I going to worry, 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 worry and drive myself crazy? Which one?
I guess it all comes back to the choice that we want.
Absolutely.
I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes we forget the kind of power we have in our life. When it comes to choice, many of our decisions, or I'm going to go there today, people, many of the suffering we experience is due to choice.
It is due
Do you
to
agree?
choice. Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% with that because with me, when I was going through sexual abuse when I was growing up, and I mastered being a victim and I was exceptionally promiscuous, And it was a lot of things that was happening to me in my life, which was caused by my own demise because I didn't want to take responsibility and I just blamed everybody. I had to sit with myself one day and make a choice. Either I was going to exist or live, or I was going to die or live. And I chose life. I chose to live in the present. I chose to operate differently because, again, the only person that could have saved